Hey guys, have you ever wanted to make a video game of your own? Do you have too much time on your hands or just want a cool hobby? Then stay tuned because we're going to make a game together. In this series, we'll be making a side-scrolling platformer, otherwise known as a 2.5D platformer. Remember to subscribe to my channel for more content. Every subscriber's support helps me on my game-making journey. Yours would be super appreciated. Before we begin, make sure you have all the right software to make a game. In this case, we're going to be using Unity to develop our game. Type in unity.com in your web browser, click the Get Started button, go to Individual, and click Get Started underneath Personal. Since we're not going to be using Unity Startup Guide for this tutorial, go to Returning Users and click Go Here. Read and accept the terms and download the Unity Hub. Run and follow the instructions to install it, and give it all permissions it needs, and it should be ready to go. Go to Installs and download the newest version of Unity. When installing modules, choose the ones you think you'd use. You can always change this later. I normally go with Windows and WebGL, but if you have a Mac, go with that. Install it and it should be added to the Unity Hub. While you're waiting for that, we're also going to install the app I use for programming, Microsoft's Visual Studio. Type in visualstudio.microsoft.com, click Download Visual Studio, and click Community. Follow the installer's instructions, and when it asks for which workloads you want, scroll down to Game Development with Unity. Uncheck the optional box since we already have Unity, and install it. Grab a snack or watch some of my other videos while you wait for the download and installations. It's going to be a while, depending on your computer. Now that that's done, go to Unity Hub, click Projects, New, and click 3D. Name it whatever you want. Remember, it's going to be a platformer game. Then click Create. Look at that! You're so close to making your own game. The hard part is over, and now this is where the fun begins. Quick overview of the Unity layout. This is the scene hierarchy, which shows everything in the scene, aka level. This is the project files. It's where we'll add assets like 3D models and scripts. Over here is the inspector, where you can edit properties of objects in the scene or in your project. And this is the scene viewer, where you can edit the scene, aka the level. To get a feel for it, try moving around. Hold down the right mouse button and move the cursor around to change the camera view. While the right mouse button is held down, try using the WASD keys to move around the scene. It's like a mini game in itself. Let's add our player. Go to the scene hierarchy, right-click, hover to 3D object and select cube. Rename it player and left-click it to select it. Move the camera around until the red arrow is facing right and the green arrow is facing up. Perfect. Next up, we're going to add a platform. Add a cube like you did before. Select it and go over to the inspector on the right and set the position to 0, -2, 0, and the scale to 10, 1, 1. Starting to look like a platformer yet? No? Well, that's okay, we'll get there. Select the player again and go to the inspector. Scroll down until you see Add Component. Click it and type in Rigidbody. Make sure not to select the 2D version, we want the regular 3D one. This causes our player, the box, to be affected by gravity and physics, so it'll make jumping easier in the future. Go to Constraints and check Z next to Freeze Position and check all of the rotation ones for now. This way it'll stay going side to side and won't flip around when it moves. To stay properly organized, we have to make sure to create folders. Create 2 folders, Prefabs and Scripts. So what's a prefab, you ask? It's basically a way to save your object with all of its special properties so you can reuse it later. Let's try it out. Drag your player from the scene hierarchy into the Prefabs folder. Now we have a ready-made prefab that we can use again. If you delete the player from the scene, then you can just drag it back in again. Next up, we're going to dive into scripting head first. We're going to make the object move side to side today using the arrow keys or WASD keys. But we gotta make sure the pool we dive into is set up first. Go to Edit, Preferences, External Tools, and set the external script editor to Visual Studio. Now when we create a script, we'll be using a nice editor instead. Go to our scripts folder, right-click and create a C# script. Name it Player Move and open it. Visual Studio should open. These here are the 2 default functions that Unity runs. This one when you push the start button, and this one happens every frame. Go up here and type Rigidbody, capital R, and let's name it RB. Put the semicolon after it. Congratulations, you've declared a variable. So what's a variable? Well, it's a value that can change or vary depending on what you set it to. In this case, we're going to reference our Rigidbody that we created for our player. Underneath start, type RB, our Rigidbody variable, equals getComponent, angle brackets, Rigidbody, remember the capital R, close the brackets and type parentheses and a semicolon. The parentheses are found in all our functions, and the semicolon is to finish your line of scripting. So now the player will have a reference to its Rigidbody so it can move in the game. We need to set up our inputs next. Luckily, Unity already has some default inputs, but I'll show you where to find them and edit them if you need to. Go to Edit, Project Settings, Input Manager. Here we have a bunch of things set up for moving, shooting, jumping, and for the mouse, but we're only going to need the first two today, horizontal and vertical. They already have arrow keys and WASD set up, so we'll leave it for right now. Go back to Visual Studio. We're going to declare a couple more variables. First, a Boolean horizontal. A Boolean or bool is a true or false variable. We're going to use this one to see if the player is putting any input on their keyboard. Second, a float horizontal axis. A float, short for a floating point number, is a number that can have values after the point and is easy on your computer's memory. Go to Update and put horizontal, our true or false Boolean, equals input.getButton, open parentheses, quotation marks horizontal, close parentheses, semicolon. This will set horizontal to true if A, D, left or right arrow keys are pressed, and false if none of those are pressed. Underneath that, put horizontal axis equals input.getAxis, horizontal, semicolon. This will give us a negative number if it's A or left arrow key being pressed, and positive if it's D or right arrow key being pressed. Let's change update to fixed update real quick, as fixed update is meant for physics-based gameplay. We're going to create an if-then statement, which is the bread and butter of computer programming. Type if, open parentheses, this is where we'll put our condition, our bool horizontal, close parentheses, curly bracket, enter. This should set it up for you. We'll put another if-then statement in here to decide whether to go left or right. So for right, if horizontal axis is greater than 0, curly bracket, enter, then RB, our Rigidbody, dot move position, open parentheses, vector3.right, plus transform.position, our current position, close parentheses, semicolon. We'll put an else bracket if the input is left instead of right. Else, curly bracket, enter, rb.movePosition, negative vector3.right, aka left, plus transform.position, semicolon. Don't forget the semicolons. Go back to Unity and attach the script to the player in the Properties tab. If we test this, it'll work, sort of. It moves, but it moves way too fast. It's trying to move a huge distance almost every frame, so we need to specify the timing. In both of these move positions, multiply the vector3.right and negative vector3.right by Time.deltaTime, which will make it move a fixed amount per time rather than try to move every update. It'll slow it down. But now it's way too slow. We'll need some way to change the speed. We're going to declare a public variable, a float called speed. Public variables in Unity can be accessed within the editor, and they're mostly used for things that are customizable or need to be accessed by other objects. Type public float speed semicolon, then multiply these by speed. Save and build, make this a habit by the way, then go back to your Unity project, set speed to something reasonable like 5, and try it out. Congratulations, you've made a game! It still has a ways to go, but you should be proud of your achievements so far. You've learned some of the basics of Unity and the C# coding language. Do you want to see more tutorials, music, or game development videos by me? Subscribe here or check out some of my other videos using these links. You can also support me on itch.io using the link in the description below. And remember guys, life's a game, have fun with it.